here for the night. Billy, Killy, look after the ponies. Make sure you stay with them.
A farmer and his family used to live here.
Oi.
And this is Phantom of the Northern Marshes, a adventure module, fantasy ready to run role-playing adventure module from J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth by Iron Crown Enterprises, MERP, or Middle-earth role-playing game. And we have a simple treehouse sits in the shadow of a peak called Pen-Drebi. Outside, it's a horrible revenge being taken, planned against the sleepy village of Nothva Raglaw. Can you face the menace of the phantom woods? An intruder from the Ettenmoors haunts a cave in the Witbeamwyd. Tongue twister words. Farmers report missing livestock. At night, earth trembles with heavy thuds, and daylight reveals huge, yard-long footprints. Is it a monstrous troll? Is it a ghost? Can you solve the riddle of the Redortha? And a huge firedrake has crawled out of the shadows of the northern Misty Mountains. His path as a fiery destruction leads to the Witbeamwyd and the town hall where he lies unchallenged. And you match the massive strength and hot breath of Gerse's Bane. Alright. Okay. This is a little side note. Right. The opening scenes, and I'm going on 3 years of my YouTube channel, and an excess of close to 500 plus videos of various quality and grimace moments. I know that you have to start somewhere, and you need to work and grow and practice and study and try to improve. There are certain things that I have tried over time to enhance the channel to some degree. In the past, when I didn't have the ability to do down view videos, I read everything pretty much and showed you the books, and those are older videos. That is one of the reasons that I am going back through MERP a second time, because my first go around with MERP was that format. I want the down view. I've added captures at the beginning to try to give attention. I tried to create, in the early days, I created fairly crude but cluttered thumbnails, and since then I've gotten away from adding words and phrases and things like that to them. It wasn't necessary, because you can get those in the lower sections on the YouTube entries. The fact that the color covers of these books themselves are excellent thumbnails. They've done all that work for me. I just need to show you what the content is and make it whether or not you're interested in listening to me babble on about it. I am trying to improve how I present that as well. It is a constant journey, right? A lot of these new opening clips are captures off of YouTube or other sources, and are they're trademarked, or there is something or somebody watching them, and I get a little notice on a lot of these things, but nobody's acted on it. Hopefully, because I'm not making any money off this channel. 114 subscribers that bounce up and down, pretty stagnant for the last 6 months, up and down a couple. Some drop out, new ones come in, or the same people come back. I don't know. You're never going to make any money off of this channel. It's not about that. One of the things that's always been for me about the channel is trying to share my love of my hobby, this hobby, and the material, and to show that these are still valuable or have viability. They're playable. You can easily modify these to run in your favorite fantasy role-playing game system. The fact that the creators of MERP even realized this and added a chart in the front that I hype on a lot of times. I bring out and point out that you can easily modify this to whatever system of dice roll you prefer, or a story-based system that doesn't require a lot of dice. Pathfinder, D&D, whatever trips your trigger, and it makes them still valuable. Plus, it's fun to share. A lot of these you can still get secondhand off the internet, or PDFs maybe occasionally reprinted, but most of the stuff that sits on my shelves are one-offs. They printed 1 or 2 runs, they sold out, that was that, moved on to the next thing. And I want to keep some of that alive because I'm old, and I know that this stuff will be on YouTube until YouTube shuts itself down. Whenever that happens, it'll be out there on the internet for a long time to come, right? So my part is, I've picked up a few props for my Star Wars because I had the opportunity to pick those up cheap at a DAV, local DAV. Yes, Frankie? And it's another attempt to garner attention to the channel, make people interested in it. One of the videos I recently viewed on trying to make your channel better talks about being consistent, know your audience, and don't be everywhere. And I try to do that in this channel. It's a game, role-playing game heavy or specific, geared towards middle-aged gamers like myself or younger gamers, and I'm not talking under the 13 crowd. I'm just saying people in their 20s and 30s who are behind me in years, they're I'm ahead of them in years, and it's sharing our hobby and where the hobby came and some of the material and stuff. I also do the occasional blather about my opinion on certain kinds of mechanics, or how we play, or how we comport ourselves, or how we should, or how I think we should, or how perhaps we can do something this way, or how I do something in my opinion. And I try to phrase that whenever the opportunity is in my opinion. I do follow several Facebook channels, although I'm not on them video wise as much as I was in the past. I'm just holding back in the background and watching and observing because I have a tendency to babble on and roll on. I mean, you see my videos. I have made attempts at videos where they were compressed and shorter. This becomes a problem sometimes when I'm dealing with, how do I present the material here? So you can't really consolidate these things without losing a lot of what they are. And I also have tried to moderate my real world issues over the last handful of videos. I'm trying to focus more specifically on the material that we're presenting, that's being presented, as much as I can. It is the way it is. Technology wise, I've recently picked up a Go camera, and I don't know yet exactly what I'm going to do with it. I can blend it in here. Another thing is I use the technology I use, or the software, to present the videos. There's other more extensive software out there. This one here has a lot more options than what I've opted to tap into. I don't want to pay yet another mild monthly payment. That stuff adds up. You get something here for $5, you get something there for $12. But next thing you know, you're $100 a month paying on a dozen different things total. And I'm up to the $30 or $40 a month right now when I add my a handful of things that I pay a monthly fee for. And they're modest fees, but those modest fees add up. And I don't feel the need at the point to have a lot of the bangs and whistles. I also don't have a huge amount of time. My job, you've heard me, if you watch any of my videos for the past year or two, you'll listen to me. I will cry and bitch and moan and share things you don't care to know, because it's an opportunity to vent. I spend a lot of time by myself, and I don't have any direct friends who are enthusiastic in my real world life that are enthusiastic about this hobby we love and share. So when the opportunity, they have a tendency to blend together for me, and for that I do apologize for anybody that finds that part trying. The fact that the last handful of these videos have become longer as opposed to shorter is more to do with me trying to concentrate on sharing the material in the book itself when is reasonably possible. I don't want to read verbatim, because then we've got hours worth of stuff, and I've got some really the game systems, right? This book here is pretty thick, and I don't want to sit here and make 10 different videos based off of it. And I could, because I could cut out every major character in there and do a video on them. And who knows, a couple 3 years down the road, when I've pretty much tapped all the stuff I currently have, I may very well do that just to do something, keep my channel going. The other point of the fact is the channel's been going for 3 years, so there are occasional items that I'm tempted to toss in that have nothing to do with the game channel. And the video I watched the other day, yesterday actually, said that you shouldn't do that, right? You should focus on what you do. And yet, I've noticed that of the handful of videos that I have that get the most hits have nothing to do with our stuff. And it was from my earliest days. So, you know, I found this, came out of my father's collection, and I'm tempted to do a video of it because it has absolutely nothing to do with this and a lot to do with a whole lot of other things that might draw in a lot more attention to my channel for numbers, right? And then I plan on putting this on eBay and selling it. I'm not a I'm not a gearhead. I never have been. My dad was, you know, and he had a lot of, you know, really old material. There was boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff like this. And my sister had thrown a lot of it away after my mother passed away, and before I got my hands on it. And please bear with me, I'm not off on a tangent. So, I know that some of this stuff has value to other collectors in the car, in the old cars, and the gearhead. You know, there's a whole different group of people. It's not unlike what we do here. There's a lot of people who are avid gamers, and they are interested in older game systems that they've heard about but never played. Others are interested in game systems they've never heard about because they're old and they're hard to get or they're expensive. You go out and Google this and see what the value of this particular book is on eBay or Amazon. I'm just saying, right? I paid $8 for this thing back in the day when I first bought it, and I know today some of these books are excessively expensive because they're one-offs or two-offs, right? They just didn't make many, so they're become slightly collectible. So it's a hobby thing. It's just like the gearhead stuff's a hobby thing, and part of the YouTube channel thing is to get attentions, to bring subscribers in, and if you bring them in, you know, in different methods here and there, I don't see that as an issue. Maybe I'm wrong. And as always, I value people's commentary and opinions on this stuff. Please put your 2 cents worth in, right? So, back to the show, right? Yeah. So, Phantom Menace. Excuse me. The Phantom of the Northern Marshes. Alright. By a number of different people. Sure is. Author designer Graham Staplehurst. Right. 1986, Tolkien Enterprise Divisions of Ellen Merchandising Incorporated, Berkeley, California. Now, one of the reasons I picked the opening credit that I did is that there's a lot of material out there, and then there's a lot of stuff that they didn't cover, and this is set in a setting that's not too far from that clip that I played at the beginning. And the burned out or broken down abandoned farmstead is kind of, you know, it's, I don't say pertinent, but it does lend the right atmosphere to where this was back in the day when that farm was still a thriving farm, and there were towns and villages all over that section of Arnor that are no longer there. But here's the conversion chart I spoke about. Handling play, adapting your module to your game. Like the rest of the series, this module is designed for use with the Middle-earth role-playing game, MERP, or More Advanced Rolemaster System, but is adaptable to most other FRP games, statistics expressed on a closed or open-ended scale using the 1 to 100 base and a percentile die. No other dice are required, but here are the module, or the easy adaptation chart, converting hits and bonuses. There are characters, got a bunch of extra stuff. Phantom of the Woods. The land known as the Northern Marches lies in northernmost Arnor, now simply Eredor, roughly incorporating the upper reaches of the Arthedain and Rador. Taken together, this wild, windswept region of cool plains and down the hill covers most of the third of a territory once claimed by the North Kingdom. Arthedain's North Marches covers all the land north of Lake Evedin, or Ninul, and central North Downs, or Tarn Forman, while the North March of Radur encompasses the area south of Agmar or above the river Harweller. The town of Nothva Raglaw sits on the southern edge of Radur's northern march. This rather large and charming village serves as a focal point of activity for the eastern half of the northern marches. Set in the valley of the river Raglaw, this is a starting point for the adventures called the Phantom of the Woods, and its principal setting in both of the both other scenarios. Pronounces. Tale of the Phantom in the Woods. The tale begins, oddly enough, in the mind of a young woman named Hanny. She was the daughter of a poor farmer who worked the land to the east of the town. Her folk were good, honest, but homely, not ones for seeking outside their immediate needs. Even as a child, she was too bright and her mind too quick to be constrained by such a simple life. When it reached out, questioning for answers, she felt the power of the darkness. Thus, Hanny went to Witbert, an animist and cleric whom she knew was trained in the ways of magic. A Northman himself, Witbert was devoted to the memory of ancient heroes and kings from which the Northmen were descended, and from his dedication he drew power. He instructed Hanny in all the manner of rituals for worshipping in the histories of Northmen and the restrained use of power granted a select few by serving the ancestors. As an assistant, Hanny was keen and dutiful, but the slowness of her teacher irked her and she wanted more power. Want more powerful knowledge sooner. Hanny took to wandering off alone for large periods, neglecting Witbert, who had come to rely on her to a large extent, and then returning to urge him to reveal more teachings. Witbert grew suspicious of her journeys and doubted her devotion to Gerse and the other heroes he revered. On her travels, Hanny often went north, sensing the evil power and domination of the Witch King of Agmar. It was, however, on the trip southeast in Radur where she encountered Phelim, a sorcerer of the Dunman. He taught her darker arts, and for her friendship and allegiance she was eventually rewarded with a talisman which its provenance unknown. Witbert discovered this talisman months later, and sensed its evil power. He challenged Hanny to renounce the Dark Lord, and when she hotly refused, he banished her from Gerse and Nothva Raglaw, declared an outlaw, and with her few, if any, friends remaining, she departed immediately. But then, when she returned to Radur, she discovered that Phelim had died. Hanny was left with no one to turn to. She lived a solitary life in a while, hunting and trapping, sleeping in Phelim's secluded cave, until one day she discovered its secret hoard of Ogam stones. These stones are inscribed with writings and runes known only to the Dunman and contain instructions for various evil magical rituals, etc. So we got NPCs: Witbert the priest, Hanny the witch. There's a picture. No, that's not her. That is Olord the healer, known locally as the healers, a commonly young woman around 30 or 35. Alfred the ranger, Wolbach Thane of Nothva Raglaw, the blah. I always struggled with some of the words just don't roll off my tongue. Nothva Raglaw, are also known as Regent's Refuge, is in a small town lying just southeast of the Witbeamwyd at the head of the Raglaw Gorge. Its particular history in the town is given a special character. Unlike any other northern town, it was being used as a settlement even back in the Second Age, when as now its site provided shelter, water, and plentiful supply of both wood and stone for building. The land around it was also more fertile than much of Radur or the only lands. When the kingdom of Arnor was established at the beginning of the Third Age, Nothva Raglaw was a prosperous town well situated for communication and trade with the northern provinces and eastern settlements. It lay on an old road which ran from Omensal to the Ettendales and then north to the region now occupied by Agmar, but then farmed and mined by Dunedain and Northmen. The road eventually led to dwarvish delvings in the far north of the Misty Mountains. It goes on with more information. Layout of the town, various locations. Nice little map of the town. This is Pen-Drebi and Hanny's treehouse. Layout of Hanny's retreat in the Durban. Hanny's treehouse, the young witch has built herself a rather shaky hut in the branches of a spreading white beam. Foliage of the tree will conceal the structure in the spring through autumn, but in winter it will be rather more obvious. It is a single room, about 12 by 15, built from planks, boards, and wooden shingles. In it are old chests containing clothes, a mattress, blankets, some kitchenware, and a large bucket for fetching water. A ladder hangs down from the white hut while Hanny is out, but it is trapped two ways. Base tree is kindly hauled out by Hanny to make a concealed hole behind the bark. Outcroppings to tour. Woods and the vales. See, that's one of the things, and I repeat this all the time. All these modules provide another piece of the puzzle for Middle-earth, J.R. Tolkien's works. So not only do they serve as a ready-to-run gaming module, but they actually have material in them that makes them a good thing to have, just to have a better understanding of the world around the players. In this case, the woods and the vales. So we got a little bit of history of the area. We know a bit more of northern Arnor that was left out. More information about the terrain and the location, the weather, things like this. And so the task in this adventure is quite simple. Scour the woods, find out what is causing good people in northern Nothva this trouble. Hopefully any soul brave enough to try this will be ready to face and defeat a danger, so the townfolk will be left in peace. It is also hoped that the shepherds who disappeared might be found and returned to their families. Alright. I'm trying to find that missing entry. Layouts. Yeah. At the time the characters joined the story, Hannes secretly moved to the northern Greywood to wood and built its treehouse for a simple construction of shadow of Pen-Drebi. She now plans to use a set of augment stones to obtain her revenge, as she can use them to cast spells over the earth. These she has been decorating with pigments and etchings in imitation of the augment stones with her preparations. She thinks the ritual will cause the rocks, the village, to tear themselves out of the ground and go pounding off to destroy the village and homesteads. However, the magical protection emanating from Gerse means that she will be unable to do significant harm, even if the characters do not stop her. Using magic, Hannah has remained mostly undiscovered in her exploits so far. No one saw who charmed the shepherds she abducted as they tended sheep, and there are no signs of struggle. The townsfolk have been scratching their heads a lot. A hunter named Baroth was found killed, slain by Hannah after discovering the marked rocks on Pen-Drebi, but she let him go a long way from the rocks in her treehouse home before dealing with him. Another trapper named I.C.E. saw Hanny's source's light one night and believed it was a ghost. Fled back to Nothva Raglaw to spill his tale in the limpid pool of the town's only inn. This tale will be repeated to any traveler stopping in, possibly in many different versions. Alright. Main obstacle is Hanny's professional preoccupation with sorcery and deception. She will be very hard to track down, and search for her should be a main part of the adventure, although preparations are also important and should not be neglected. Once they have stumbled across Hanny, it is likely she will evade them. See section 3.52 for her Hanny's ploys, as she is an accomplished escapist. However, it is not essential for the characters to slay Hanny or even capture her. Discovering her home and rescuing the shepherds will suffice to disrupt her current plans. There you go. I think she plans to sacrifice the blood sacrifice with to make the stones and rocks come alive and go off to beat up the town. Right? Encounters. Standard encounter NPCs, other folk, beasts, controlled beasts, traps, tracks, natural danger, and then nothing. No special encounter happens in the 3-hour period. Unless Hanny has been encountered, then there's a 50% chance of producing one of her phantom manifestations or attacks. You may wish to sustain the atmosphere of suspense by using this encounter as some other event, such as a simple change in the weather, an eerie noise, a glimpse sighting of something that's actually harmless, an uncommon bird or animal, or anything to provide a distraction. There's a picture of Hanny. Hanny's ploys. reaction to given situations will vary. She has numerous options. In most cases, you should pick one that seems the most appropriate, for it gives her the best chance of success. You should also pay attention to the dramatic quality of the game and describe the events in the most mysterious and different ways possible. Although very unwilling to reveal herself, Hanny may attempt to delude the captors or those she is forced by circumstances to speak with. She has been trying to conceal her activities, but not actually thought to disguise them as an activity or some other creature or person. That confusion has arisen naturally in the minds of the townfolk. If seen or discovered, if she's forced to fight, she prefers to attack from a distance to distract and annoy. Then we move on to the next adventure, the Riddle of Rudolph. Adventure uses much of the same material setting described in the first adventure, the Phantom of the Woods. These same NPCs may be found. The town of Nothva Raglaw is once again the starting point of the adventure, and the locals mentioned are used again. Basically, we got the tale of Rudolph. One day, a farmer arose from his snug bed and kissed his wife good morning, went out to took his favorite hazel switch and went down to the byre, drove his beautiful roan cattle down to the river to drink, only to discover a huge set of footprints in a muddy bank. He measured them with a stick and was staggered to realize these footprints were a yard long. The farmer didn't stay around to find out what made them, but did ascertain that they came out of the east and passed perilously close to the town during the night. He fled into the town to warn the people, and soon a crowd was hammering on the door of the Thing's house, etc., etc. What we have is well, the picture is deceptive because it talks about more of a younger juvenile or just come of age giant as opposed to this fellow. This fellow looks pretty aged. Just saying. The next day, a cow and a goat are reported stolen. Huge dents in the ground are found nearby where they had been tethered. Over the next few nights, fears the townfolk grows. Further thefts from isolated farms and animal sheds. One day, a shepherd by the name of firedrake was found knocked unconscious. His flock raided. The poor man was taken to Aldart's house, where she healed his wounds, but he remained so terrified he cannot speak it now. Witbeamwyd advised Bethany to seek some help to discover who or what is causing the destruction and recruit them to rid the area. The intruder is the legendary creature of a stone giant known to the Northmen as Stan Ettenmoors. The stone giant is young and inquisitive and is venturesome, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to pause for a second. So, we get this giant that comes into town causing problems. Adventures, it says like here. Rid or through. The stone giant is young and inquisitive youth. Does this look like a young and inquisitive youth? I'm just saying, right? Okay. He's adventuresome and on growing tired of his mountain home and an argument of parents struck out on his own to discover the rest of the world. However, roaming the Ettenmoors for a while, found nothing more interesting than a few trolls to fight. He has arrived by chance in the area and found a plentiful food supply, the herds kept by the local farmers, and does not understand why they are so much easier than deer and elk to bring down, nor has he realized the annoyance he is making of himself. He settled in a cozy cave almost at the summit of one of the great hills. He has enlarged it. Sleeps for most of the day, being essentially a nocturnal creature. So the basic adventure is to uncover what's making these big prints and stealing everything, which kind of, shouldn't be much of a stretch. And then, more importantly, how to deal with him, how to deal with this giant, and how to either get him to leave or take him out. And so you got the NPCs, various people that are willing to help or give information or get in the way and cause problems. And we've got the information more of him, Ridorothu of Rencock, the young stone giant wherever high and remote place in the Misty Mountains, known as Coach. He stands 14 feet tall, has heavy arms and legs, gray skin, and a craggy appearance, rather frightening at first sight, but capable of mellowing into a welcoming smile of folds and dimples. Like all giants, he prefers nighttime or gloomy or stormy or cloudy days to the bright sun, but sometimes ventures out during the day. He's dressed roughly in stitched jerkin of bear hides and breeches of tanned goat skin, and carries a rather large and stout staff of pine and a shoulder sack. His outlook on life is rather different from that of other is a little different than other giants. He's not particularly interested in gathering a horde, and though he joins the shouting and hurling rocks around, he has become bored with the mountain life. He has no brothers or sisters, and his parents don't get on too well together. For a giant, he is quite intelligent and seeks something more than from his hitherto isolated existence. Of course, he doesn't really know that this might be perhaps a suitable mate to settle. He doesn't really know that this might be perhaps a suitable mate to settle down with, although he's not too struck with the idea of marriage yet, or the wider appreciation and understanding of nature. I don't know where he got to come from. Because of these feelings, he's grown interested in men and other free peoples. He's become considerably more compassionate than most giants. For example, he's quite sorry to accidentally struck down a shepherd and made sure he was alright before leaving him. Of course, the close attention of the enormous creature just flattened you isn't too good for mental stability, but the giant wasn't to know this. The moment Raglaw is enjoying life with his plentiful supply of wild game, he will certainly resent the intrusion of company. He's not much experienced in mannish ways. He speaks very slowly, enjoys the loud, brash music. Most of these traits might make him seem more barbaric than he is. Most fond of thunderstorms, riddle games, and tasty food. He also enjoys the taste of skill, like stone throwing, a superstitious favorite among his giant kin, particularly during storms. So we got the layout of his lair. Nice map of his lair. Inside his cave. The task. This adventure is another kind of hide-and-seek, a dangerous game. Characters have a better idea what they're looking for, perhaps a very tall two-legged creature, possibly invisible and capable of making very large dents in the ground. They might assume it's an enormous troll or something equally nasty. You should not help them at all in trying to guess out what they're searching for. Anyone mention giants to the townsfolk, they will just say that giants are just intelligent stories, etc., etc. Yes, Frankie? Yeah, we'll get it. Is that your ball? Yeah? You're making a lot of racket with it. Starting players, aids, obstacles, and rewards. Various encounters. Read through riddles. Giant may be attracted to the characters by a number of means. They might try to meet by chance in the woods or vale, or at home in his cave. He will first be silent and cautious, particularly of an overly martial party, and one that seems intent on doing him harm. However, he is quite willing to make friends. A gift such as a splendid meal of roast elk or stag would provoke a very positive reaction from him. Once the characters have gotten on speaking terms with him, he will only comply with any request, such as asking him to leave if the characters are very persuasive or if they beat him in a trial of skill or wit. 2 trials of skill, the writer will immediately agree with his strength, although it's doubtful any character could take him on, and missile accuracy. A trial of wit means a riddle game. There you go. And we got a collection of riddles here potentially to toss out. And we move on to adventure number 3, which is 5.0, Gerse's Bane. This adventure is set like the others in the environments of Nothva Raglaw. Sections 3 and 4 contain much useful, pertinent information for running this adventure and should read thoroughly. Yeah? Is that tied up in there? Well, let me get that out of the wires. Yeah, there you go. Here to most part, the crew is tough. As you run this adventure, for characters have been through the 2 earlier scenarios who have plenty of experience elsewhere. This easily is the most dangerous of the 3 adventures presented. The tale of Avnik and Geller. Travelers who go north from town must both be brave and strong, for they encounter even steeper hills and ever more hostile inhabitants until they reach the Ettenmoors and the jagged peaks of the northern Misty Mountains. Yes, Frankie? Well, I can't help you over there. Here dwell the most of part only cruise and toughest creatures on the borders of Ettenmoors. In times past, many dwarves lived in the area and dwelled in deep-rooted mountains to find their precious hidden treasures. Now they are almost all replaced by trolls and orcs and trolls and dragons. There was a dwarf named Geller that lived long in these inhospitable parts. He was brave and strong and worked out the end of old mines and ore seams, searching for catches of rubies or emeralds hidden from thieving evil plunderers. One day he was unfortunate enough to investigate a cave occupied by a huge sleeping dragon. Needless to say, the dragon immediately woke, instantly disliking the small dwarf. Captured, Geller tried to bargain with the firedrake for his life, yielding up all of his collected wealth of gems and nuggets of gold. The booty was insufficient to Avnik the dragon, who, although was without much hoard himself, felt insulted by the offer. The drake desired more and was rapacious and acquisitive nature, inflamed by the dwarf's talk of treasure, Gerse told the dragon of all the treasure hoards he knew of at Agron's urging. Each one the dragon considered rejected. All were either too far away for him to reach, for he had no wings and could not fly, or too strongly defended. The dragon was, he admitted, if only to himself, still young and a mere stripling beside whose relations had been hewn into a disturbing number of pieces by upstart elves and men. But then Geller mentioned the Tots Hala. The terrified dwarf, almost convinced his own doom had been made, making each description more luridly excessive and wildly exaggerated than the last. He portrayed the Tots Hala as a huge hall of 100 Northman kings roofed with gold and stuffed with unimaginable treasures. Well, not unimaginable to Arvik, you understand, since dragons have a very large imagination when it comes to gold, silver, mithril, other finery. Now, said Geller, the Tot Hala stands abandoned in a wood guarded by only a piffling ghost of its former occupants. Ever looked down this magnificent snout, whisked the smoke going from each nostril like an elegant mustache, thanked the trembling dwarf for the information, then with one huge bite he snapped his jaws and Geller was gone. And that is the last part of Geller plays in our story. What you get for exaggerating, said the Avnik to himself, but his mind was made up. He certainly would investigate Tots Hala. So Avik the dragon became north to Nothva Raglaw, crawling and wiggling. He made his way from the mountain's cleft to the high ravine through the rocky hills. Sentries and guards of Ettenmoors reported its rushing, fiery passage in the most horrified terms, and in which King laughed, hoping the drake would cause harm to his enemies wherever it went. Angrisk progress. The first day of the second day. A nice picture of our dragon friend there. Eric arrives in the area early morning, coming first upon Gerse. He burns every building there, and only Ardog escapes. Witbeamwyd is slain defending the shrine. The drake overcomes the magical protection of Gerse, but unwittingly releases Gerse, the gourd of Gerse, from the icy heart it was embedded in. Such is the heart of a dragon's fire. And then overlooked it in haste. After frightening off several people and devouring some herd animals, Eric heads into the Witbeamwyd. I guess this is the hilly chain area, leaving a trail of destruction, and discovers the Tots Hala. Feeling tired and sedated, he merely sits in front of the Tots Hala, exhibits its magical defenses. Next day, dragon awakes at first light, spies the town, immediately races down the hill through the woods towards town, perceiving the men of Nothva Raglaw as the only threat to himself. Thane Warbeck has drawn up the full levy of all able-bodied men and women, whether ever on the rise beside Hunter's Lodge, where they courageously meet the dragon, only to be utterly destroyed by him. Some of them being slain outright, the others chased and pursued, burnt and mangled. There's furious and terrible onslaught of fire and fang. Anvik rampages through the town. Note: the GM may wish to have the dragon injured to make him easier for characters to fight later. Just, nice little notation to remind yourself. If this fella just walked through the whole town's militia in Sundre, you might want to be a little bit tougher than what you think. Dragon on the third day, dragon concentrates his magical protection, protecting the hall, and succeeds in breaking the spells the Numerian mage wove about it. He blasts his way through the copper doors, takes up residence inside. From now on, he stays there most of the time, making occasional forays into town and other settlements. NPCs, Envik the firedrake himself, Gerse. Gerse's story is told elsewhere. His ghost is the one thing to protect the town. Gerse. Gerse's sword is a magic weapon. Special sword over 6 feet long and typically traditionally used by Eldorian Northmen over the centuries. Blade is 4 feet long in the main section. A further foot of the blade is separated by a cross piece with spikes extending 12 inches on each side. The section above the cross piece is unsharpened. The hilt, I suppose that way you can grab onto it and use a two-handed sword. It's a big sword. Layout of Gerse and the tail, the veil of Tots Hala. Healer's house, Gerse's shrine, Whitbird's house, or what's left of them. Imagine they're all more or less rubble now. Task, pretty straightforward. To slay a dragon. Or to run away. To run away from a dragon, right? Potential. That's what fantasy and heroes are made of. Aids, obstacles, as if the dragon is not an obstacle enough. Encounters table. Other yahoos and animals and what have you that might be running around. And here is a regional map. It's the Witbeamwyd. Yeah, it is a Witbeamwyd, so on and so forth. Town. There you go. Nice little additional set of places. Till next time. This is the Fat Man saying, game on.